Hello, Canucks fans, and welcome back to another edition of Quads Instant Reaction. My name is Dave Quadrelli. I'm the managing editor of CanucksArmy.com and also the editor-in-chief of the Nation Network. And in this series, what we do is we take a piece of Canucks news. Sometimes it's a rumor, and I give you my instant reaction to it right off the cuff. One take, most of the time, about Canucks news. And today, the news of the day, the Canucks have signed Kevin Lankien to a 5-year contract extension with an annual average value of $4.5 million per season. Now, this is an interesting one for a lot of reasons. Obviously, we know how Kevin Lankien came to Vancouver, tested the free agent market, didn't like what he saw, was left without a seat at the table after guys like Anthony Stolarz, Laurent Brossoit, who I think Lankien and his agent probably thought they'd be in competition with when it came to signing in that $2 to $3 million range on a 2-year deal. Lankinen was left without a seat at the table, and with the Canucks' uncertainty heading into training camp with Thatcher Demko and his knee injury, the Canucks and Lankinen needed each other. So this was a perfect fit back then, and that fit has only increased as the season went along. Obviously, Lankinen's been spectacular this season, but the biggest thing when it comes to this contract and why ultimately the Canucks felt that they needed to get this done and strike now is that Thatcher Demko's out with another lower body injury. The team insists it's not the knee, but at the end of the day, Demko has proven to just be injury prone, and you can't really get past that simple fact. Hasn't started a ton of games for them this season. Obviously, didn't make his season debut until November as he nursed that knee injury, but now he's out with another injury. Obviously, there was the back spasms in Seattle as well, so it hasn't been a season to remember for Demko. He's about to turn 30, as is Lankinen, but again, with Demko, you're looking at a guy who ultimately is just, you can't rely on him to stay healthy, and while it's not an ideal situation for the Canucks to be in, it is the one that they found themselves in. You look up and down their depth chart, you can't rely on Demko to stay healthy, you can't rely on Artur Shilovs to stop the puck consistently. Nikita Tolopilo, Aku Koskenvo, Ty Young, these kind of prospects, and Tolopilo's a bit older, so maybe it's not fair to lump him in that conversation, but those guys have upside, but there's no indication that they're going to start NHL games, and none of them are, certainly none of them are going to start NHL games and be an NHL starter next season. And ultimately, that's what the Canucks needed to lock up. If they weren't going to be able to rely on Demko, they needed to figure out how they were going to get saves next season. And obviously, you can't rely on Artur Shilovs at this point. So that kind of left the Canucks in a situation where they were looking at it and said, okay, we're going to need to sign somebody. We're going to need to trade for somebody. As we've seen recently, the cost of doing either of those things isn't very cheap. Trading for a goaltender isn't cheap, and signing one isn't cheap either. In fact, you looked at the upcoming crop of free agent goaltenders and you saw a guy like Adin Hill, who's clearly at the top of that. You saw names like Jake Allen. He's 34 years old. You see Ilya Samsonov. You see Alex Georgiev. Karel Vejmelka from Utah is also in that mix as well. Charlie Lindgren, again, it seems like the Caps are just going to sign him, so it's weird to include him in that conversation. The point of this is Kevin Lankien was probably going to be the second or third best goaltender available on the open market. So yes, the Canucks did pay probably his market value of what he'd be paid. But ultimately, that's what this come down to is they did pay what the going rate for kind of these mid-tier starters is going for. I look at Mackenzie Blackwood, who again in Colorado, after they gave up assets and had to trade for him, signs an extension for 5 years at $5.25 million. Joey Daccord in Seattle also comes to mind. Again, that was a 5x5. So for the Canucks to get Lankinen at 5 years, $4.5 million, I don't think anybody's sitting there saying, I love the contract. It might age poorly, but at the end of the day, the Canucks were in this situation. They needed a guy who can make saves. They know Kevin Lankinen can make saves. Imagine where this team is at this season without him in their crease. And they decided that, hey, we have to get this done. And what other choice did they have, really, is what it comes down to. When you look at the upcoming crop of free agent goaltenders, you look at the uncertainty with Demko, Shilovs as well, and not really having anybody in the pipeline that's going to step in and, like they don't have a Dustin Wolf, for example, right? We look at Calgary and how they were able to walk from Jacob Markstrom. The Canucks don't have that. So they needed someone who was going to make saves. They decided that guy was going to be Kevin Lankinen, and they get the extension done at this time. What are your thoughts on this one? Let me know in the comment section below, and to read more about it, make sure you head on over to CanucksArmy.com.